most of the people watching this will be familiar with Richard Lucas. Richard has, until relatively recently, been a very prominent figure in Krakow, an entrepreneur, an investor, but as well a social entrepreneur behind a lot of the events that we take for granted nowadays. OMG KRK, Open Coffee, and TEDx Cashmere's. What we're going to talk about today, though, is a new take on an old theme. It's a relaunch of what some of you may know as it was branded in the summer to autumn of 2021 during that thing that some of you might remember called COVID and the pandemic. And it was branded as Village in the City, the Krakow Newcomers Club. And there was a reason for that, which I'll let Richard explain why it had that tag. So Richard, can you tell me
Okay.
the background, please?
Yes, certainly. Well, thank you very much for that introduction. And I wouldn't say I've actually left Krakow. I'm in the process of relocating, but I've still got a lot of business and projects in Poland, so I still feel very much around. And I was there I came back yesterday from a short trip. So yes, Village in the City. When I was organizing TEDx Kashmir, I often gave the stage to people involved in different types of community building projects, which are either up and running in Krakow and deserve the spotlight, or I felt they were relevant to Krakow and it was an idea worth sharing with the Krakow community. And I invited someone called Mark McCogow, who was the founder of a project called Village in the City, who had the idea during COVID that he observed that during COVID, he got to know his neighbors better than he had ever known them previously, and thought, wouldn't it be great if we could have village type communities in cities? And he observed that traditional places where people got together, like the village, the local cafe, the local school, maybe the church in religious bygone ages, had kind of disappeared, and there wasn't anything stepping into their place. And so firstly, he talked about that project on the TEDx stage and gave an excellent talk about that project. But then when I was handing over to Oksana Rovna, who's now running with her team TEDx Kashmir, which is in 5 days' time, it's next weekend on the 9th of October. One of the things I wanted to do was to have more time to devote to helping some of my former speakers with the ideas that they talked about on the stage, and one of them was Village in the City. And I thought that the thing that we could get going in Krakow that would be a good idea would be the Newcomers Welcome Club, which is the sort of project that I heard about through Village in the City. And it's one of the things that might happen in a Village in the City community. And that's how we kicked it off. So in a way, the Village in the City was the kind of umbrella idea under which the first edition of the Krakow Newcomers Club was launched.
Thank you, Richard. That tells people about the background and how it came to be. So the reason that we're talking about we can forget the village and the city part of the name just now. That's in the past. That was part of what gave birth to the Krakow Newcomers Club. So we had a few. The first one was back in October 2021. We had about 35 attendees, if I remember rightly, and it was great. It was a really good night, and there was a few more. Of course, like all great projects, things happen, and it stopped. But the reason that we're talking today is because the plan is to relaunch it. In fact, a week today will be the first of the new relaunched Krakow Newcomers Welcome Club. Can you tell us a little bit about the event which is taking place next week, Richard, please?
Yes, certainly. So to give a bit of context, despite the fact I'm no longer running TEDx Kashmir, I still go to their events when I can. And one of the things we like to do is to use our platform for community announcements. And I've come to the conclusion that everywhere in the world could benefit from a Newcomers Welcome Club, and made this point. And the way I operate tends to be through other people. So I support local leaders in the same way that TED supports local TEDx organizers. And I said that if there's anyone here in this room who would like to be involved in the process of trying to spread the Newcomer Welcome Club gospel, as you might describe it, please get in touch. And I made a Google form, and actually Anna, who's running it, Anna, let me pronounce her name correctly, Anna Pinchantkowska, came up to me afterwards and said she was interested in running in Krakow. And although she's working in business now, she's got a background in non-profit activities. So anyway, she agreed, and this was a good 2 months ago or so, and we agreed that it would be a good idea to do the event when I'm in town because I've got more experience in running these events. And so, yes, on Monday week, in exactly 7 days from now, we'll be holding the event in a cafe controlled by the co-working space on Sarego. And what's important, there's quite a difference between the way we run events in this newcomer club, welcome club format, and a regular meetup, that we really believe in structure, that we think there's a tremendous benefit to making it very introvert friendly. So if you show up not knowing anyone, we will help you to organize icebreakers, give people talking points, encourage people to circulate around the room and talk to new people. Because if you're even a reasonably self-confident person, it can be very intimidating going into a room where everyone seems to know each other if you don't know anyone. So we have a couple of taglines. One is, we welcome all who welcome all. If you're a welcoming person, you will be welcome. If you don't feel like welcoming people from diverse backgrounds, you probably won't fit in. And the other thing is, we say we make our events work for shy people, on the basis that if it works for shy people, the self-confident people will do fine.
I like that. And in fact, you used the phrase at our planning meeting a week or so back, that it's introvert friendly.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely
important. I mean, I've run meetups for Krakow expats, and we know that we have quite a few events: couchsurfing, language exchange groups. We have Layla Lounge Bar, which has came on the scene recently. And you mentioned Yoke Co-working and Community Space. They've been doing a great amount as well to bring the community together. But all of these events are slightly different, and it's just so for what people to expect, just to explain for those that are listening, the reason that I keep on referring back to the previous one is, as someone who's like Richard, but not to his degree, active in the community, I was involved in the organisation as well of the previous one, and I'm involved with the planning as well for this one. And think that it's a great idea. I believe in each person is looking for something different. I'm lucky I have family and friends in Krakow. I've been quite well established here. But a lot of people are feeling like they miss that connection, not just during, we talked about the pandemic, post-pandemic, but people who work in corpo, they go back to their single apartment or a room even, and they miss a chance to make connections, to make friends, or to meet old friends. And it's really just giving people the chance to do that.
Absolutely. If I could just jump in there, that I mentioned how these traditional institutions like, the church or the village school, the local cafe have declined. Also, modern working patterns and family life have changed tremendously. So there are many, many more people working away from the place they're originally from, and by choice, by necessity. And it's not that they're not community minded, but they need to have mechanisms and ways to engage with it's not, they don't want to just be parasites who, on a high international salary, drive up the prices of food, restaurants and real estate. But obviously not everyone, but they want to engage. So there's that's an important point you've just raised. The other thing is to say, although we call ourselves the Newcomers Welcome Club, in the event description, we also say for newcomers and people who want to welcome them. So it's not only for newcomers. You could have been here for 15 or 20 or, like me, 30 years in Krakow. But if I feel like welcoming newcomers, then or someone like me, then they're absolutely welcome, and we'd love to have you involved.
Thank you for pointing that out, Richard, because that's important. As well, I think that we stressed before that it's not only for foreigners, it's held in English. All nationalities are welcome. And like almost all international events that I go to, there's almost as many local Polish people as there are foreigners.
Absolutely. And I think it's partly, I would put it down to Poland's troubled history, that until 1989, Poland was really disconnected, not by its own choice, from the rest of the world, but we're still, more than 30 years later, there's still this positive feeling among many, many Polish people that they're glad that Poland's well connected with the international community. Obviously not everyone, and I'm not speaking, and if you're Polish and you're annoyed by all the foreigners, apologies, some of the foreigners, particularly ones from the island on which I was born, this island between, to the north of France, between Ireland and Belgium, some of them come here and behave badly. So we do understand that everyone behaves as they should. However, there is this feeling among many Polish people. They want to be connected to the wider world. They love Poland. They respect Poland. They're patriotic in a positive way towards their own country. And as a self-confident country, they're more than happy to engage with people and welcome people from other parts of the world.
Definitely. I think the key message is it's open to all, and you'll be made to feel very welcome. You'll be warmly welcomed at the event. So
Indeed.
Where do people find out more? We have a Facebook group, we have a Facebook event, and it's on Meetup. Would you tell us a wee bit about that, please, Richard?
Yeah, for sure. We'll post all the links in the notes under this interview. But I like to use Meetup because you don't need to be part of Facebook in order to get on Meetup. And although there was a time when everyone was on Facebook and no one worried about it, but for completely understandable reasons, the big powerful social media companies have rather lost the trust of a significant chunk of the population. So we don't only have it on Facebook, but you can sign up on Facebook, you can sign up on Meetup, and we have capacity for about, I'd say, 35, 40 people, maybe 50. We encourage people to cancel their reservation if they don't choose not to come, because there is a no-show ratio, which is a little bit challenging as an event organizer. But if you want to come along, do come along. We'll try and squeeze you in.
Yeah, I found that people click on either going or interested as much to show some moral support, even though they know that they've no intention of going there. So please help us to plan by being open.
Yeah. Yeah, and the other thing I'd say is that although we're starting in Yoke, and we much appreciate the support from Max and the Yoke team, if the event proves popular, there are a couple of places like Hebra and Zaraz Wracam on Miodowa where we've had larger events in the past where we can scale up quite easily. And just as an aside, for event organizers, we typically do events on Mondays or Tuesdays when bars and venues tend to be not too full, and that means that quite often we can get a function room for free on the basis we bring in people who might spend a little bit of money, it doesn't have to be on alcohol. If people want to have a drink, that's fine. But also we want to underline that we want everyone to feel comfortable. This isn't a sort of a drunken pick-up occasion. And it sounds, some people think it's a bit weird that we emphasize that in the write-up, but I think it's important. Inclusivity includes the freedom not to be hit on. If you're an attractive young man or girl, you can come along and just socialize and be friendly.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, people have to feel safe. They have to feel secure that they're coming to a place where they're not going to get hassled, and that's definitely going to be the case at this event. And you touched on a thing there about food and drink. People may know Yoke co-working space as a co-working space, but it's expanded. It now has a cafe bar. So obviously, for those that didn't know that, it's good to know that the event you're coming to will have refreshment, food and drink available. And of course, you're welcome to use it or not use it, but we would ask you to support the venue by grabbing yourself a cup of coffee or a cola or a cold beer.
Absolutely. Generally, in my welcome, I always say, do say thank you to the hosts, and if the host has a commercial bar, the nicest way of saying thank you is to buy a drink or two, and that way you keep it viable for them as well.
Absolutely. So just again to recap what the event looks like, because there's a structured part and there's an open socializing part. Can you just explain that, please?
Yes. Okay. So we have because of course for an informal meetup, people aren't always bang on time. The first half hour or so after the formal start of the event is like informal structured icebreakers, and where, for example, I'll clap my hands. And we have housekeeping rules, which are typically projected onto a screen, including things like if you come with a friend, don't hang out with your friend at the event. Make it the opportunity to meet new people, because you can always hang out with your friends, but to bring a friend, but encourage both get your friends to meet new people. So structured icebreakers, and we give, by that I mean, for example, find someone you don't know, introduce yourself and talk to them about, why you're in Krakow, or we also, and then we've got conversation cards we sometimes use with topics of conversation. One of them came from TEDx Kazimierz, another set from Paul Klipp's Agile Central Europe conferences, where it's slightly to get people away from where are you from, what do you do, talking about, which family member would you miss the most if they died, or what was the most challenging thing from your childhood, or who was your favorite teacher? Because someone may have a fairly regular job in a big outsourcing center, but if they start talking about their favorite teacher from their life, you begin to see it's not exactly a window into their soul, but it's way more attractive and nicer way to get to know someone if you're talking about something you wouldn't normally
Yeah.
talk about. And of course, without the prompts, without the conversation cards. So anyway, we have these different activities. We also have community announcements. If someone has a project that they want to talk about, we will try and give them the microphone for a minute or less. We don't want long speeches, but like if someone wants to share their project, we want to be a platform where people can get the word out about other projects
And
as well.
Richard's very strict. You will just get 60 seconds. You're not going to get 61 seconds or 62 seconds.
It's a point that not everyone realizes, but the more people in the room, the higher the cost of every second that passes. And, I've been to an event with very famous speakers like Norman Davis in Warsaw. And, because the hosting wasn't experienced, there was someone in the audience who we thought was going to ask a question, chose to reminisce about their family members. And it was awful because, you had a world famous speaker on the stage, Norman Davis, the most celebrated historian of Poland, who everyone wanted to hear, another 300 or 400 people on the edge of their seats because Norman Davis was there. And some, no offense, but some nobody in the audience waffling on at length, and the host should have cut them off, because that's respectful of the time of the attendees. So we try to make the events fun, informal, and efficient. So in the first half, activities where you get to meet people, you'll have a badge with your name written on it, so it's easy, you don't have to remember anyone's names. And then later on, about halfway through, we say, okay, the hosted bit is over. Now you can spend time chatting to the people you've met who you particularly want to chat to. And so that way you're not being micromanaged all the time. But if you've met 5 or 10 people in the icebreaker phase in the first half of the meeting, it almost guarantees there'll be at least 1 or 2 people with whom you can interact in the second half and have a longer conversation with.
Yeah, and in the past, I know that some of the people who have been having a great time and enjoyed the evening have chosen to move on to another venue just to continue socialising if they're struck by friendships. Absolutely. Or they want to just continue their conversation.
Absolutely, we encourage that, and we also suggest that people can, they can get in touch with each other between the meetups as well.
It's true what you said there, Richard, because I joke about it, but I'm guilty of it myself. This bit about having prompt cards for asking different questions. How many times have both of us and people watching us been to any event? Me too. Hello, who are you? Where are you from? How long have you been in Krakow? What are you doing here? It's the same questions. I always joke about having a T-shirt made with the answers to these questions that I'm going to wear to the next international meetup. So it's good to get people talking and thinking and not just the same repetitive questions.
Absolutely.
So we've got the structure. We know where people can find out more. It's going to be about 2.5 hours, as you say, the half an hour for people who work on Krakow time or people who are working and can't quite make it for the start. An hour of the structured integration events, icebreakers, call it what you want, and then an hour of socialising, and then from that's the official part of the night over, and we take it from there. They can find out more at the Facebook event, at the meetup, and they're welcome to join the Facebook group. All of the links will be underneath. If people want to know what it actually looks like, I made a very short film from the very first one actually we did in October 2021, and it's on YouTube. I'll also share a link to that. And finally, a call for volunteers, Richard. I know that we have a group of people who are helping us to put this together, but many hands make light work. So you have a form for people to volunteer if they want to help.
Yes, certainly. In fact, there's 2 forms. There's one for people who want to help at a local level, but I also have, the ambitious plan to help scale this around the world. So if you're from somewhere else that you think could do with a Newcomers Welcome Club, or you're moving somewhere and you'd like a good way of integrating with your local community, what better way to do it than to form your Newcomer Welcome Club when you're a newcomer? That's what I've done. And so, so for people who want to get involved, as it were, in the head office level and help me scale this all over the world, you can fill in that form. And those links to 2 Google forms will be shared under this video as well.
Cool. Richard, thank you very much for that. I'm looking forward to it next Monday at Yoke co-working space, starting at 6 o'clock, the official part starting at 6:30. I look forward to seeing you, Richard, there and seeing everyone else. Do you have a final message for people, Richard?
Yeah, I mean, people say that time is precious, and they're right, in the sense that if you're not sure about this and you're wondering, you might think, is it really worth it? I'd say, I commit that I and Anna and the other people David, the people who are making this event happen, are really focused on making it a valuable event. So I'd encourage you to consider taking a risk. The other thing is that unlike every other thing that you can save, you can't save your time. You've got to be doing something next Monday evening. You're going to be somewhere. And I think that if you're a bit curious and you come along and you see the way you do it, you may think this is a really good idea. And you might be not only glad you came, but I hope come up to us and say, hey, can I get involved and help make this a much more regular event? Because all being well, we will be holding these events on a very regular basis.
Thank you, Richard. I'm looking forward to it. And as I use the phrase at my own events, it's a chance to make new friends, meet old friends, and feel at home in Krakow. So what's wrong with that? What more do you want? Richard, thank you. I'll see you next Monday.
And thank you for helping facilitate the public relations. Thank you.
You're
Bye-bye.
welcome.